Hi, I'm Dan.
And I'm James.
And welcome to the Cornwall Property Podcast, where every week we bring you the latest news, hot topics and guidance around the Cornwall property market.
Stay tuned to be informed, inspired and to have any of your property related questions answered by trusted local property professionals.
Welcome back, I'm Dan.
I'm James.
And this is episode 42, believe it or not, of the Cornwall Property Podcast. And we're here at the Cornwall channel, bringing you as much value and content as we can. Now, how focus and our mission is to inform, educate, inspire you guys on the property market and the property world, with a particular focus on the Cornwall property market. So this is our market updates episode, whereby we will pick a couple of articles that caught our eyes this week, and we also then leave you with a couple of opportunities to maybe look at and maybe do some numbers on, really. So I'll pick a commercial property that has caught my eye, that's currently in the market, that could be helping bring some residential homes back to the Cornish market, and James here has picked a residential. So I've got commercial, James has got residential. So guys, please do get in touch.
Absolutely. And just remember how you do that. You can go to our website, which is cornwallpropertypodcast.com. Go onto the front page there, scroll down to the bottom, and you can send us a message in that way. But you can also reach us on social media, on Facebook, like many of you do, and send us a message on there. And just remember, we're here to bring lots of content and exciting things to you, but we're, just as reliant on you guys for getting in touch with us so we can, answer your lovely questions that you bring to us. So we're all in this together and helping the Cornish market. So thank you again.
Definitely. So I'm going to slap it out there quick. Rogue landlords face prison sentences under new rules. So again, with all of our articles, they're all available on the show notes. So scroll down, have a look at the show notes, and you can access all of these articles in more detail. But in essence, the headline was really concerning, actually. It was kind of like, oh, crikey, landlords face prison sentences. But then you start reading into it, it's rogue landlords could face prison sentences. And this is down to the new legislation that's coming into play. So if I give you a little bit more information, again, I got this from the landlordzone.co.uk. Under plans to get tougher on landlords, stricter standards will be brought in to eliminate unsafe and cold rental properties, say the government, which brilliant. Definitely needs to be done.
Yeah, agreed.
New government plans to upgrade older housing stock in the private rental sector. And there's basically a new policy proposal that's not currently out, but they're proposing that we should see landlords who let properties that are below standard and who fail to keep the properties warm, dry and safe and in good repair, that they can potentially be criminally prosecuted in local magistrates' courts, where a judge could decide their fates, and the maximum sentence that these rogue landlords could have is 6 months in prison. So I'm all for it, personally. I'm all for it.
Absolutely. You know how I feel, Dan. I'm very, passionate. I'm being landlord myself. We are landlords, giving good quality of living. And, it's like with anything in the service industry, if people are going to pay for something, you want to give them something that's good quality and they feel they're getting good value for money, and I think it's completely unacceptable that damp, horrible, gloomy property where it's, not safe to be living in, you should, put it to standard, otherwise be penalised for it. So I'm all in the motion for it. I think it's good.
The only thing I'll do a little flip on there is essentially, obviously, the details. Because you can have properties that are not lived in correctly, if as such. So you could have damp areas in the property, but that might be because the tenant's drying clothes in a room and they're not ventilating it. So they've also got to be educated. Tenants need to be educated and be aware of what their duties are to keep their property safe and clean, I suppose, as well. So there are some sort of lines that I've seen properties that we've gone to view and they look horrific. There's mold everywhere, but then you actually start looking at the actual what's happening in this room. Well, you've got furniture up against external walls that are really cold, which are great, should be updated thermally perhaps, but you've got clothes drying in these rooms, no heating on, no windows open, no ventilation. So moisture from these clothes that are drying are just staying in this room and becoming stale, and it's got nowhere to escape. So again, I think great, all for it. Properties and landlords who are just really below, but it's not fair. But at the same time, I think it's important that we are educating our tenants on how they should be using the properties, ventilating it well, trickle vents, leaving the windows open where they possibly can. Obviously, appreciate in the colder months it's not possible, but there are ways that you can look after your properties. But in essence, all for it. If a property is unsafe and it's not been looked after and it's in disrepair and it's not been sorted, the buck stops with the landlord. And what's the biggest incentive you could give other than a fine? Well, this is this pretty big deal.
Absolutely, can agree more.
Next one for me is from thisismoney.co.uk, and I suppose it's not a surprise, but at the same time, when you start seeing the figures, it actually there's like, oh crikey. But we're looking at, again, I'm diving into a little bit of mortgage here, James, so don't shoot me. But mortgage rate hikes half profits of average UK buy-to-let landlords, and this is due to the base rate rise of 2.5%. If the base rate can get to 2.5%, you could see a majority of the landlords buy-to-lets going negative in terms of profitability. So landlords have seen annual profits nearly halve in the last 8 months, and it's only going to get worse, isn't it? At the minute, you're not going to see base rates drop anytime soon, I don't think. So rates among the biggest lenders have risen from 1.25% to 3.12% since October. So on a £200,000 interest-only mortgage, for example, okay, that essentially works out as a jump from a landlord paying £209 a month to them now paying £521 a month. So if your landlord's there asking you for a little bit extra rent, that these are the sort of reasons why, because they are possibly really struggling at the minute. Because if their term of their mortgage, which you're not necessarily going to know about, the term might have been come to an end, and they might have had to remortgage now. The interest rates are so vastly different to what they would have been potentially when they took out the mortgage, that they're probably needing to raise some rents because they can no longer afford these mortgage payments. And the concern is, obviously, if you can't afford your mortgage payments, there's someone who's going to come knocking, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And there's a bit of repossession potentially there. So again, it's more of an education, more of an eye-opener. And when you start seeing those numbers, £209 a month on an example of a £200,000 mortgage, interest-only mortgage, and it's now up to £521. That's over double the amount that they were paying. So some landlords, as a result, what would you expect if that was you and you're just making enough? You're likely to sell up, and obviously this is then putting a lot of pressure on tenants trying to find new homes when the stock is being sold. So you can see how this big kind of circle of life of the property sphere is kind of working at the minute. Is everything's up against availability, supply and demand, isn't it? So there's not enough availability, not plus a supply, but there's a lot of demand still, understandably. So again, just really alarming, but I just want to kind of chuck it out there just to educate and make people aware of it, really.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, the landlords do have these properties. It is a business. Obviously, you want the capital appreciation over time for the property value. But, that's from an investment point, it's a long-term game. But it's like you say, that they are trying to make that profit. After all the bills are paid, they're left with their subsidiary money. That might even be their, their pension, if that's where they are in their life. But also it's, part of those profits, you should be putting in some money aside for maintenance. I know earlier on this year, I had one of my properties that, had my profit, which was good for that particular year. It was about £3,000 of profit in total, and my boiler went. It was just time. It went. There was a big issue with it, so I had to replace it, and it cost me £3,500 to replace it. But with this on top, it's just your landlords are being squeezed. But it's the same as everybody, even in the food and restaurant industry, people having to spend more money on electric and everything. It's not a good time for anybody right now, but we should try to stay positive going forward.
Definitely. And I say it essentially just turns an asset into a liability. You're losing money on it, so it's no longer such a juicy asset. But James, what have you got for us?
Absolutely, it's my turn now, but I do the first one I've got here. I think it's quite related, and it's no surprise really. But my first headline that I got from Mortgage Strategy was an article here from Moneyfacts, and the headline was "Mortgage Choice Plummets in September." So the total number of mortgage products, all loan to value, saw a dramatic drop between August and September. Moneyfacts says from 517 to 3,890. This is the smallest number counted since April 2021, when there were 3,842 products on the market, and is 1,425 fewer in available in December 2021. And what's more, all loan-to-value brackets saw product counts fall, which is the first time this has happened since April 2020. I mean, what does this mean, basically? In my view, and what the article is kind of saying, is that because of everything that's happening with interest rates at the moment, when the base rate was really, really low a couple of years ago, and everybody was kind of taking loans, getting mortgages. There were so many products, the most we've ever seen, where mortgage companies were getting so creative. They were giving you 30-year fixed, they were giving you 20-year fixed. They were saying, if you put this much deposit down, we'll give you a further discount. They had the room to maneuver, but now, because interest rates are so high, there's less choice for these mortgage companies to basically get creative, and as a result, there's just fewer products to choose from. So I think landlords really are just on that fence post. Do we invest in another property and take another product? But the worst thing is, if they've already got a product and their 2, 3 or 5 year fixed is coming to an end, they've got very little products to choose from, really. And let's be honest, as you say, they're not that great, are they? No. So, yeah, it'll be interesting times ahead to see kind of where we go with it. But I just think you just got to ride the storm, really. I haven't got any magic solutions unless you have, Dan.
No, I think as always, and cash flow's king. Just making sure you've got some cash left over at the end of the month, I think, is the key, and that you can afford to just ride this out as best you can. Appreciate cost of living's going up, bills are going up, but you just need to make sure you're doing your numbers regularly, checking your outgoings, and essentially just trying to make sure that you've got some disposable income at the end of the month for that kind of issue that you can't foresee at the minute. And just gives you that little bit of breathing space. It's not going to be like this forever. It's not going to be like this forever. And there will be some help in the way. Obviously, we've had the announcement of the support for energy bills and the capping of your energy bills to £2,500 per annum. But again, it's not going to be like this forever. So just sit tight and just watch your numbers.
Absolutely. I'm talking about more help. Another article I found on mortgage strategy, again, with the Cluttons report, was Truss needs to bring back tax allowances for landlords, which I thought would be very welcomed for people in
the chances.
Absolutely, in the property game. The new government, headed by Liz Truss, needs to bring back tax allowances for landlords to get them back into the market, says Cluttons head of residential James Hyman. Reacting to the new government, Hyman says the new Prime Minister priority must be to ensure that interest rates do not escalate out of control, as this, coupled with the cost of living crisis, will cause the market to crash. Planning is a topic that comes up elsewhere. For example, a Leeds Building Society spokesman comment said, "There's no simple fix for the housing crisis facing our country, but building enough homes to meet demand is unquestionably the right place to start." And Property Mark Chief Executive Nathan Emerson talks about housing supply also, along with the energy efficiency, which he says were the two top issues in a recent online poll the body carried out. We believe that gap can be closed through measures that bring the many tens of thousands of long-term empty properties back, and the introduction of focused targets for new homes that are based on an identified need for each tenure across the country. And I think we can, directly relate to that for all the empty homes that are here in Cornwall. I mean, with interest rates going up, we've got tax measures at the moment for people who don't have properties in a limited company. They just own them in their personal name. We know that today you can only offset 20% of the biggest overhead, which is the mortgage interest, which I won't say everybody, but a lot of people are mortgage interest only. And with those interest rates going up, your bill for the amount of interest you're going to have to pay against the rent coming in is, I think it's a very worrying time. Something needs to be done because we're going to be in a bad situation.
Essentially, the government is a business, and any business that was in the sort of deficit that the government are in would be closed down a long time ago. So essentially, they need to be creative in ways to encourage, instead of just going slapping more tax on people, it's actually trying to be clever in ways that they are currently taxing or could tax. Or not tax, to encourage people to maybe spend more in certain areas that will be taxed more. Mm-hmm. For example, we need more housing. Well, if they can get creative with measures such as this, potentially, it might encourage more people to buy a buy-to-let property. More buy-to-let properties will help bring stock to the market, which will help ease the demand. So not only are we building houses, but we're actually getting more private landlords to get on the market and actually help with the amount of demand that's out there.
Yeah,
I just think there needs to be creative in terms of ways that they could, and this Cluttons report is essentially saying the same by the seems of it, but there needs to be creative of how they can encourage people to do, not necessarily, they can't force people to do certain things, but it's more like incentivize people to get involved, incentivize people to get
100%.
back involved with property, because there's no positives at the minute to the property market.
No, and it's
a long-term game. Yeah, brilliant, but there's nothing really that's going to attract people at the present time with all the legislation that's being thrown and the issues.
Yeah, and hundreds of thousands of people throughout the country on the housing register with a lot of property that is, empty, doing nothing. So there is a solution to the problem, but it's the middle ground, isn't it? That, as you say, incentivization from the government.
For sure. Brilliant. So this is the part of the show where we are going to bring you to property. So I am going to share with you now. If you're watching on YouTube, fantastic, you'll be able to see this in real time. If you're listening on an audio device, obviously there is a link, as always, in the show notes to the Rightmove adverts for these properties. So I have picked a beautiful period property, which is in Towerdreth in Cornwall, so just outside of St Austell and Parr. And it is currently a guest house. It's for sale. It's the reason this has caught my eye, James, is because I've been watching it with yourself for a little while, and it has had a price reduction recently. So this month, which is September 2022, it's just been reduced from 750 to 725. So it's quite a chunky amount, but you get quite a nice bit of building for your money. You've got to do the numbers. Obviously, it's got to stack. But what I like about it is we actually developed a similar type of property and style and look and size, to be fair, in Mevagissey a while back. So if you are interested in looking at that, we actually did a podcast tour of it in some of our earlier episodes. You could scroll back and have a little look and get a little taste for it, if this might be something that was in your locker perhaps, or of interest. But as you can see on the floor plans, if you're watching and viewing, it's a lovely property. I reckon you could easily make this 5 apartments. So one on the left wing, one on the right wing, and that's both on the ground and the first floors. And then if you look at the top floor, you can make a nice, beautiful penthouse, really, as well. If I show you some of the images that are on the advert as well, you can see here it's just a lovely dated period property. Look at that original flooring as well.
Stunning.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Obviously, if you're going to do that, you're going to have to comply with fire regs, acoustic specifications and planning. But it's just an opportunity. It's a guest house. They've been wanting to sell it. It's obviously not of interest as a guest house to people. And it's got beautiful views, a really high demand, popular location. There's some great schools in that area, I know, because I'm fairly local. But again, it's a beautiful detached 3-storey Victorian property on the market, just been reduced. What does that tell you? Owners are motivated.
Motivation.
Exactly that. So again, opportunity to bring potentially 5 properties to the Cornish market.
Absolutely, in a good space and lovely property to work with, for sure.
Or
so,
one big family house.
Indeed, very much so. Big family.
Big family. What have you got?
I have a property on here which is in Tucking Mill in Camborne. It's on the market with Your Move, which their office for this particular one is located on the main high street in Camborne as well. Pretty vanilla 3-bed townhouse. It's pitched here as an ideal investment family home. That's what we'd like to hear. It's got 2 reception rooms. It's got double glazing and electric heating. It is an EPC rating of an E, so just bear that in mind. So some upgrading, I think, definitely to future proof it will need to be done there, but it got reduced on the 11th of August, so a little bit of time ago now. Currently on there at 159,950, and I think it would make a great family home. It's got a little courtyard out the back with a bit of development. I think you could put in quite a nice garden out the back there. And from looking at the pictures on here, I think from upgrading and modernisation, that it's not like a really, really in-depth refurb, so I don't think you need to be spending huge amounts at it, and I think there's definitely value to be added. I think because it's been reduced and it still hasn't gone, and it's been about 6 weeks since then, I think you could probably get a bit more of a reduction on this. But again, it's empty. It has been empty for over a year, I've been told, and it's just an empty property that would make an ideal family home. But I think it's quite a nice little place, actually.
Yeah, I don't know Tucking Mill too well, but I'm just looking at the map here out of interest of what's in the vicinity. It's quite close to the Valley Park as well. So location looks good, and again, more importantly, the price. It's an empty house. It's something that could be brought to the market very affordably, potentially.
Definitely.
So, like it. Nice one, James. Good pick.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Again, show notes. Go for the show notes for the links to these properties, and you can access and have a little look yourself and potentially arrange a viewing. Please let us know if you do go for any of these properties as well. We'd love to hear if you do have any success stories or any questions as a result. But thank you ever so much. So look, guys, that brings us to the close of this episode of the Cornwall Property Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us, as always. Our next episode is an Ask Dan and James episode where you guys get in touch with us to ask us any of your property related questions that hopefully we can help. And how can they do that?
They can do that by getting in contact with us on our website, which is the cornwallpropertypodcast.com. Go onto the front page there, scroll down to the bottom and send us a message. And you can also reach us on social media, such as Facebook, which many of you do. And as always, we're ever grateful for you getting in contact, because without you guys, we couldn't make the show happen. It's all in this together.
Also on Instagram now too, so do give us a follow. Guys, thank you so much. That's goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me. Take care, guys.